I'm watching the live telemetry from the Strait of Hormuz right now, and what I'm seeing is a total naval blackout. A silence so absolute it suggests the tripwire hasn't just been touched, it's been snapped. While the mainstream news cycle is still debating the diplomatic nuances of rising tensions, the physical reality on the water tells a much darker story. We are witnessing the first stages of a total global energy collapse, an event that will trigger the immediate implementation of domestic fuel rationing across the West and a permanent devaluation of the dollar against energy-backed assets. Behind closed doors at the Pentagon, officials are currently debating the Option 9 protocol, a contingency plan that assumes a 6-month closure of the world's most vital oil artery. But the questions no one is asking are the ones that matter most. Which 3 ghost tankers were scuttled at the deepest point of the shipping channel to create a permanent physical blockade? And why did the Iranian supreme leader move to a hardened command site exactly 14 minutes before the electronic blackout began? I'm telling you this because the mainstream ticker is still talking about tensions, while the actual maritime maps show a completed blockade. The tripwire has been pulled, and the only question left is where you will be when the pumps stop running. To understand why your life is about to change, you have to understand the 21-mile kill zone. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway, it's a jugular vein, and Tehran just picked up the scalpel. At its narrowest point, the shipping lanes are only 2 miles wide in either direction, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. Through this tiny needle's eye flows 20% of the world's petroleum and 25% of the global liquefied natural gas supply. That is a volume of energy narrower than most daily commutes, yet it powers the industrial heart of the planet. Iran's strategy here isn't about winning a conventional naval battle against the U.S. Fifth Fleet. It's about asymmetric ruin. They are implementing what military planners call a sinking strategy. By scuttling older vessels and utilizing thousands of smart mines, they are creating a graveyard of steel. This makes the strait mathematically unnavigable because no maritime insurance firm on Earth will underwrite a tanker entering a confirmed minefield. Even if the U.S. Navy can shoot down missiles, they cannot shoot a minefield out of the water in a single afternoon. Furthermore, the technical shift in this conflict is terrifying. Iran is now deploying Seabreaker missile technology, low-flying, stealth-coated projectiles that skim the surface of the water. Our Aegis combat systems are currently struggling to track these signatures in the humid, high-salt environment of the Persian Gulf, where radar refraction creates blind spots near the horizon. In the geography of war, this is an A2/AD bubble, anti-access and area denial, that has effectively turned the Gulf into a closed lake. We are now entering the phase of the ghost blockade. In the last 72 hours, the automatic identification system transponders across 40 major merchant vessels suddenly went dark. This wasn't a technical glitch. It was a coordinated state-level electronic warfare strike designed to mask the positions of ships and create tactical chaos. This blackout is the preamble to the Option 9 leak we've been tracking. Internal Pentagon documents suggest that the U.S. military acknowledges it cannot safely reopen the strait within the first 30 days of a full Iranian mobilization. Imagine the mental movie of this reality. A line of supertankers, each carrying 2 million barrels of crude oil, sitting idle like sitting ducks. They are being swarmed by small, explosive-laden Zodiac boats launched from hidden tunnels along the Iranian coast. These are not pirates. They are disciplined IRGC maritime units executing a plan decades in the making. But the ships aren't the scariest part. Keep a close eye on the timeline, because the delay in the Gulf is accelerating the crisis at your local gas station. When the physical flow of oil stops, the financial world enters a $2.3 trillion vaporization event. Within 48 hours of a confirmed closure, the oil future cascade begins. Paper oil markets, which trade millions of barrels that don't actually exist, will completely disconnect from physical reality. We are looking at $300 per barrel oil overnight. This isn't speculation. It's the mechanical result of shorts covering and panicked hedging by every airline, shipping firm, and national government on the planet. While the West reels, the BRICS nations, specifically China and Russia, have been quietly filling their strategic reserves for 18 months. They knew the Hormuz tripwire was coming and have prepared for a world where the petrodollar no longer guarantees energy security. Now, we have to talk about your money. This isn't just about the price of a gallon of premium. Petroleum is the foundational ingredient for plastic, medical-grade fertilizers, and 90% of the pharmaceutical products in your cabinet. When oil triples, the cost of living doesn't just rise, it explodes. The mainstream press is focused on the fire in the Gulf. Serious investors are looking at the fuel, and the fuel is your life savings. This brings us to the rationing mandate. Governments are already dusting off the 1973 blueprint, but with the we are seeing early reports of fuel authorization protocols being integrated into banking apps in Western Europe. This means your ability to buy gas will be capped based on your essential worker status or your carbon footprint. When diesel hits $12 a gallon, the just-in-time delivery system that stocks your grocery stores will fail. Grocery store shelves don't empty because of people hoarding bread. They empty because the trucks literally cannot afford the fuel for the return trip. This is the reality of the Hormuz choke. What happens when the 14-day supply of food in your city runs dry because the logistics chain snapped? I'm going to tell you why the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is supposed to protect us from this, is actually a hollow shell. After years of being used to suppress domestic prices for political optics, the SPR is at its lowest level in decades. We are walking into a hurricane with an empty umbrella. The most disturbing part of this crisis is the evidence of institutional betrayal. We have received reports of a dissent cable signed by 38 high-ranking U.S. generals and admirals. They have warned the administration that a kinetic war with Iran over the Strait is a trap designed by Beijing. The theory is that by drawing the bulk of American naval power into the narrow, killing floor of the Persian Gulf, the U.S. leaves the Pacific wide open for a Chinese move on Taiwan. We are seeing a massive rupture in the chain of command. There is visible friction between the White House and CENTCOM over who actually gave the order to pull carrier strike groups back 200 miles from the Iranian coast. Was it a tactical retreat or a realization that our ships are vulnerable? Internal memos show that the administration was warned about the specific vulnerability of the Strait 6 months ago, yet they chose to ignore the buildup for political optics. You suspected the system was fracturing. Here is the sign proof that they knew this was coming and did nothing to secure the energy independence required to weather it. The Option 9 payoff is the final document we need to examine. The conclusion of this Pentagon protocol is haunting. It's not a plan to win a war. It's a plan to manage a permanent global decline. The document assumes a 15% permanent reduction in global energy availability following the conflict. This is the shadow narrative that the elites are already acting upon. While the public is told to conserve energy, private energy security firms and billionaire investors are moving their wealth into off-grid commodities and localized energy infrastructure. They are transitioning from the assumptions of the old world, where energy was cheap and infinite, to a new world of scarcity and control. You need to move from a state of global doom to individual action. When the paper world burns, only physical assets, gold, Bitcoin, and physical energy supplies will hold their value. The tripwire has been pulled. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. The dollar is under siege from a BRICS-led energy pivot, and the rationing has already begun in the secret war rooms of the West. They want you to be afraid and compliant. I want you to be informed and prepared. This is why we track the patterns they try to bury, looking at the satellite data and the leaked cables that never make the evening news. I want to hear from you in the comments. How is the energy situation being reported in your specific region? Are you already seeing purchase limits at your local stations or unusual price spikes in your grocery bills? Which of the three scenarios we discussed, the naval trap, the economic collapse, or the digital rationing, do you think is the greatest threat to your family right now? Subscribe. We'll continue tracking this situation as the telemetry from the Gulf comes in. See you in the next update.